On News 5 Live, the body of Ulysses Roca has been cremated, but questions persist on the cause of his death. The National AIDS Commission condemns the bullying and other threats endured by HIV patients. The Ministry of Health says 2 persons have recovered from COVID-19 and will tell you about the rejected South Korean test kits. Opposition leader John Brisenia says government must act post-haste to come to the aid of livestock producers. Border closures and drought. A police officer is charged for violating curfew laws, and a new law is passed to prohibit the open burning of fires during the state of emergency. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
SMART is fully prepared for the demands on our network to facilitate those working from
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, April 21st. I am Marlene Cuellar. The family of Ulysses Roca, a gay fashion designer, is questioning the cause of his death. There was no autopsy done on the body before it was cremated, so the family has become suspicious over the cause of his demise. When he was detained for curfew violations, Ulysses claimed on video that he'd been beaten by the police while in lockdown. Today, News 5's Dwayne Moody spoke to a pathologist about what procedure may have been used to determine that Ulysses died of multiple organ failure. Here's that story.
It has been an emotional journey for the family of Ulysses Roca, a 25-year-old fashion designer from Willows Bank, who was found dead inside his house in the village. There have been so much speculation as to what caused his death, and the family cannot find closure to his tragic death. The body of Ulysses was cremated on Monday following a post-mortem at the medical college on the Boom Hatterville Road. But today, Sister Delita Roca questioned whether one was in fact carried out because Ulysses was HIV positive.
He was already decomposed. He was already smelling and whatever. So the funeral home had already informed us that we had to do the cremation after they were finished with the body. So yesterday afternoon the cremation was done, but last night I just wanted to make sure that they did a postmortem. So I asked the funeral home if any incisions were on his body or any marks or signs of anything that a postmortem was done, and he said that no incisions were made and no marks or no cut or anything to prove that they did an autopsy on him.
The police department reports that a medical officer conducted a post-mortem examination which concluded that the cause of death was certified as due to multiple organ failure. Now, it is known that Roca, in a recorded video, stated that while he was in police detention for breaching the curfew, he had been struck to the face by a police officer. That triggered an investigation by the department.
I saw a Facebook post where he had gone live and expressed that he was hit to the face by a police officer whilst in custody. He also showed his jaw to be swollen. And in that same live, he also made some allegations against some other persons whom he was saying were bullying him. I am not going to say that his death was caused due to police beating him. I'm not going to say it was not either, because from what he said in his video, the police hit him on the jaw. I don't think a hit on the jaw will cause someone death.
The family believes otherwise and questions whether the trauma from the beating caused his death.
Last night on the news, the police said that his cause of death was multiple organ failure, but if no autopsy was done, then I don't know how they came to that conclusion. So we're wondering the same thing presently. We think that the infection that he had, obviously, like we said, the swelling that he had, obviously we think it was infected, and we think that if like the police said it was organ failure, it obviously was caused by the infection that he had. With the swelling, and what my brother came to us with was from the hit that he got from the officer that hit him in the face with a machete. So that's what we are thinking caused the swelling and caused the infection that led to the multiple organ failure that they are claiming. But like I said, we don't know, because from what the funeral home told us, no incisions were made on the body, no proof that any autopsy was done.
Today, News 5 sought answers, and in a sit-down with pathologist Dr. Hugh Sanchez, we found out several things. One, a post-mortem simply means the examination of the human body after death, which may involve an external and/or internal examination. That internal exam, which is referred to as an autopsy, includes the removal of organs which are then tested. Two, as a rule, autopsies are not done on the cadavers of HIV patients because the bloody procedure puts the medical personnel at risk. This supports the allegation that there were no incisions on Ulysses' body. 3, if a doctor is satisfied with the medical history of a patient and carries out an external exam, he can make a determination of cause of death. Dr. Sanchez says that a limited autopsy procedure could have been done where the doctor could have made an incision to the abdomen to take a cursory look to determine whether the spleen or liver had been ruptured, suggesting that there was trauma to the body which caused internal bleeding. Dr. Sanchez, in a professional capacity, does not believe that Ulysses died as a result of an infection. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Today, a joint release was issued by the National AIDS Commission, the Special Envoy for Women and Children, and the Ministry of Human Development, saying that they are extremely saddened by the death of Ulysses Roca. According to the release, stigma, bullying, violence, and discrimination has been sweeping across our nation and manifests itself in the form of police brutality, hate posts on social media, and indifferences. These organizations have been championing the Equal Opportunities Bill for a fairer society with improved public services. In recent days, the police has come under fire for abusive and unacceptable behavior. One recent case involves the recording of the coercion of a mentally challenged woman into having sex. The release says that alleged physical violence against Roca by law enforcement officers is unacceptable. Executive Director of Unibam, Kayla Borosco, spoke about the indifference during an interview with News 5.
At the heart of the matter, he may have been denied medical care, and there were overzealous officers who expressed their homophobia through name calling like Cinderella and Princess. And in my mind, this could have been mitigated by simply recognizing that medical attention was required. There are black spots in the police department that will always give it a black eye because they're busy in promoting a culture of suppression and not making a distinction between those individuals that need a little bit more empathy in their response and a little less suppression in the way they must carry out their duties. In my mind, this is a wake-up call for the police department to do better, to strengthen their ability to deal with people who are not privileged to speak, to hear, to comprehend basic language of instruction.
There are now 2 persons who have recovered from the coronavirus. 18 persons contracted the virus, 2 died, and now 2 have recovered. The ministry says 170 COVID-19 tests were done over the last 6 days. According to the Director of Health Services, Marvin Manzanero, more testing components are expected in the days ahead. Now, on the matter of the topic of the testing kits from the Cayman Islands, Dr. Manzanero shared during today's Ask the Experts webcast that that country has a backlog for some components for the tests, and that backlog will affect Belize's timeline to obtain those items.
We have done close to 170 tests over the last 6 days. Some days you have a bigger batch going in. I do have to stress that we are, like we had said, we are anticipating that the swabs that we use for doing the testing and the enzymes that are needed for the testing, because it's not just the actual test that you need, but you need extraction enzymes, you need purification enzymes. Those should be arriving tomorrow. We did follow up on the Cayman Island offer. We spoke with people who are directly linked to the Cayman Islands lab in the Cayman Islands, and they indicated that their enzymes for the testing kits that they have, they're on a backlog order for that will last between 6 to 8 weeks. So even if we are to procure those kits, our backlog will perhaps be longer than 6 to 8 weeks. So we're going for now to keep on with the actual PCR platform testing kits and hoping that we are getting all those enzymes tomorrow. We are anticipating also that some of the equipment that we had paid for, PPEs and all those other ventilators, should be arriving tomorrow. Even the supplies from PAHO that were supposed to have arrived. The reactions are here. We got 2,500 reactions for doing testing, but the other elements have not arrived. Is it true that Belize will be purchasing kits from Cayman Islands? If so, why buy them now when we didn't initially want them, when they were being offered for free? Two things there. They were not the same kits. I think we had clarified that. This is the third time we are saying that. They are not the same kits, and even if we decide to buy the Cayman Island ones, we have to understand that we will still need to buy separate reagents, which the Cayman Islands doesn't have.
It's been 9 days since the last COVID-19 positive patient was identified, and moving forward with testing, the DHS says that they will be reviewing their testing strategy because they're seeing fewer reported cases of respiratory illness, and they have tested those patients who were hospitalized. He notes that they are doing fewer tests in recent days because they're not seeing as many persons with respiratory illnesses.
We are going to go back and review where it is that we are going to be testing, because we have tested all those patients who are hospitalized that have influenza-like illnesses and severe acute respiratory illnesses. So we are considering we may open it up more to have people having some other condition, and maybe Thursday, Friday do what we would call a sweep of secondary or even tertiary contacts that are symptomatic of the initial cases as we move along. We are the last 4 cases that we reported was last week Monday, but they had been swabbed on the Saturday and Sunday before we actually announced the results. So I think it's important that we say that. For an outbreak to be officially declared over, you would need to be 28 days without a single case. One of the reasons why you also have less people being swabbed is people are having less and less flu-like symptoms, or at least they are not showing up in the health facility. We had said also that our traditional flu season usually goes from October to March. We are in the month of April, so we believe that it's following the pattern that we would have expected with epic curves then. So the numbers are significantly low. As a matter of fact, yesterday we went for a period of 4 to 6 hours where nobody called the 0800 number.
The People's United Party is lending its support to dozens of livestock producers across the country who continue to lose income as a result of being unable to transport cattle through Bullet Tree Falls into Guatemala. The unauthorized but well-established trade in livestock between both countries has been a significant source of revenue for Belizean farmers, large and small, as much as $4 million. Since the shuttling of cows and pigs has been prohibited by Village Council Chairman Sabino Pinello for about 3 weeks now, millions of dollars in proceeds have been frozen, and the livelihood of the farmers and their families is at risk. In a release issued by the PUP earlier today, several points were outlined by the opposition that should be addressed urgently, including the reopening of livestock exportation through Bullet Tree Falls that would provide much-needed relief to farmers while government formalizes that industry with Guatemalan authorities.
We have been working on this matter for several weeks, especially Honorable Abelardo Mai, our Shadow Minister for Agriculture. And he has been talking to the farmers and also to contacts across the border and to everybody with the Minister of Agriculture in Belize, Minister Holtz, the CEO Alpuche, everybody that's prepared to listen. And we believe that what the chairman of Bullet Tree Village Council did is wrong, it's illegal, it's immoral. They have no authority to do such thing, and the government should have acted swiftly to address it. And now here we are, more than 4 weeks later, our farmers cannot sell their cattle and their pork or beef and chicken, everything that we could sell across the border because of the excess capacity that we have. And so our farmers are suffering, they're losing millions of dollars. Some of them could lose their farms, they could lose their homes, they could lose all of their livelihood. And another important part of this thing also, Isan, is that a lot of people don't realize that if we do not have the farmers right now, in 3, 4, 5 months from now, we could have a severe food shortage in our country. As it is right now, we have over 170,000 heads of cattle in the country. We are producing about 30 times more than what we consume. So the only way we can continue this industry is to be able to allow the cattle ranchers to be able to sell their animals to Guatemala or to Mexico.
The question of whether Chairman Pinello is acting outside of his legal authority in prohibiting the passage of vehicles through Bullet Tree Falls remains a pertinent concern, as it sets a dangerous precedent for other communities. On the matter of the toll, Briceño says Pinello has no authority to impose. According to Briceño, all efforts should be made by government to facilitate the informal trade of livestock, since Guatemala has a population of 14 million, and there is an existing demand for the supply of pork, beef, and chicken.
The first thing that the government needs to do is to instruct the village chairman from Bullet Tree that what he is doing is illegal and he has no such authority to stop any vehicles from going through their village. Because if that was the case, then that means that every village in this country can stop any kind of traffic going through their village or wanting to charge them a fee. Because this, at the end of the day, this is about money. That now the chairman believes that he's supposed to charge a fee for these trucks to pass through his village. So that's the first thing. And secondly, then to try to facilitate with Baja, to put all the necessary safeguards on our side of the border. Because what happens then that the Guatemalans then get our animals at the border and then they take it into Guatemala. As I've always pointed out, what least believes that's export. What happens in Guatemala, that is Guatemala's business. Now, I am told that the government spoke with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture and they spoke to some officials, I think in Flores, and that they said no. But what did you expect them to say? They cannot officially tell you yes when they know that that's not an official border crossing. So we need to do everything possible starting yesterday. I mean, that's the urgency, to help our farmers to be able to get the excess beef, the excess pork, the excess chicken and eggs and milk, whatever it is, because Guatemala has about 14 million people to feed.
Another of the proposals put forward to the Barrow administration by the leader of the opposition, who also co-chairs the National Oversight Committee, is for government to purchase bulk quantities of produce that can in turn be used as items in the respective relief programs. Briceño suggests that instead of dispensing money, government can also provide meats as well as other local produce in lieu of cash. By purchasing excess produce from the farmers, the infusion of capital would allow for investments in other crops.
The government can buy about $10 million worth of the excess meat, the excess grains and beans and rice and everything, and store it. And we could be able to feed about 100,000 people for the next 3 months. Now, we could store it, and then if we still insist in giving it through the stores around the country, then instead of giving them cash, we could pay them with chicken, we could pay them with beef, we could pay them with pork, we could pay them with rice and sugar, etc., etc. You get the point. Yes, and by doing that, all farmers will be able to get 10 million, not in one day, but at least maybe over the next month or two. And once they get that, they can start to prepare the land, because pretty soon they'll have to plant again. They can continue to feed their cattle, or they will not lose the cattle because of the drought. There's no pasture. Pastures are being burnt down. So our cattle are going to be losing a lot of weight. That's the second thing that we can do.
We'll hear more from Briceño later in the newscast. Coming up, long lines form at the SSB by recipients of the unemployment fund.
Hello, friends. I'm Dr. Bob Roberts.
In the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, nurses are among the frontline workers who put their own lives at risk. A few days ago, the Nurses Association President, Darrell Spencer, reached out to the Lord Michael Ashcroft Relief Fund seeking assistance to improve their accommodation in the districts. Today, the association received $170,000, which will be used to purchase and furnish 3 new housing units in the 2 southern towns of Dangriga and Punta Gorda to be used by nurses. The furnishing will include beds, work desks, refrigerators, oxygen regulators, and other equipment. Spencer received the contribution from the Belize Bank's Lyndon Giuseppe, who is also the chairman of the Ashcroft Relief Fund. Celia Swan from the marketing department of the bank was also on hand. Belize has 2 fewer COVID-19 positive cases tonight. That's the update from the Ministry of Health this evening. Before that bit of information was provided, Director of Health Services Dr. Marvin Manzanero was on the Ask the Experts webcast when he announced the first recovered case.
We have 1 recovered patient so far. We can only say recovered after you have 2 negative samples, so we only have 1 person that meets that definition, and we are anticipating that throughout this week in the testing processes that continue, that we'll be able to have and be able to tell you of recovery cases as we move along. If you follow the little infographic that we publish after 3 p.m. every day, we had started that little portion and it says recovered 0, so that will be updated today because the cutoff time is at 3 p.m. Why would Worldometer report 2 cases healed in Belize? We don't know where that data came from. Our official data have just vocalized it for you, but in the report you're going to get at 3 p.m. or after 3 p.m. it will say only 1 recovered case because that's what we have up until now. If there's any recovered cases later on in the day, that would be reflected in the report tomorrow.
While we have had 2 patients who have recovered from COVID-19, the remaining 14 are doing well. The hospitalized patient from Corozal has since been released and is recovering at home. Today, Dr. Manzanero gave an update on the condition of the others.
In terms of patients hospitalized, 1 of the patients went home on Friday. So we only have 1 patient hospitalized currently, and that's in the Western Head region. And in terms of quarantine, you will recall that we had a full list of people who are in quarantine in the Corozal district. We only have 2 persons there. One of those, both of them, hopefully, if the patient that is there is positive is recovered, he would be able to go home. And we have 1 person that's just completing the day's quarantine that we had anticipated from everybody. The other patients are faring fairly good. The 15 patients that are at home are basically with no specific medication, and they are recovering pretty well. We are into our 5th week of having announced our first case. They have asked for respect for their privacy in terms of their recovery process, because just like we are also going through different mental stresses aside from all the social conditions that we have to learn to live with, patients are also going through different processes in terms of their mental situation. So some patients have asked if they can just be, if we can just stop labeling them, if you will understand, and that we just put whenever they have recovered that they are informed, and then that is placed up on the infographic, and that's how we are going to go about doing it.
As we reported at the top of the newscast, it's been 9 days since the last person tested positive for COVID-19 in Belize. And while Belize has only a handful of cases at the moment and can only declare COVID-19 outbreak free after 28 days of no confirmed positive case, we may not be able to go back to a state of normalcy immediately if that happens. Today, during the Ask the Experts online session, Director of Health Services Dr. Marvin Manzanero noted that the situation is different in Mexico. While so far Belize has only reached a phase 1, Mexico is now at phase 3 and expects a peak in COVID-19 until a month's time. So as Dr. Manzanero explains, There is not a clear-cut answer as to when the borders will be reopened when we consider the regional COVID-19 picture.
Understand that we never transitioned into a stage 2 of our response. We have basically remained at stage 1, even though we took stage 3 measures, and we did that progressively. Can't shy away from the fact that just this morning, and I'm saying that because our neighbor up north, so that you can get an idea of how long this can be, and we have to go about being careful in how the advice we are able to give as we move along. The government of Mexico this morning declared that they are now in a stage 3 situation, and they are not expected to peak at the current curve that they are having until May 23rd. That's more than a month from today. So that will give you an idea of where they are going with their number of cases. In case people are already asking when will that border, for example, be open, I can tell you they are not expecting to peak until May 23rd, so that we get an idea of how difficult it is to do predictions in that regard. If after 28 days has passed without a new case, will you advise the borders to open? That's a tricky situation because I just explained, for example, what's happening in Mexico. So we might not have a case, but if they're just going at a very rapid pace, escalating in their curve, it is not going to be sensible for us to make that recommendation. If the US is just going to their curve and they might not be peaking till July, then you will understand that it's not going to make that much sense, even if you have an open airport or open border, because you are going to have to be selective with who will be allowed to come in. You will recall going back to January, we first said people coming from China can't come, and then you added countries, South Korea, Taiwan. That might be the way we open up. You can say, okay, people from X country can come in, and again, you open it up gradually, the same way we kind of lock down. I think that's the same process we're going to follow.
More than 30,000 applications have been approved for persons to receive assistance from the COVID-19 Unemployment Relief Fund. Over 70,000 persons have so far applied for the assistance, which provides them with $75 a week to weather the ramifications of the coronavirus pandemic. The Social Security Board is dispersing the money to the approved applicants, but the program ran into some problems since a number of the approved persons do not have bank accounts or provided inaccurate information. Today at the SSB office in Belize City, long lines formed from early in the morning. Hundreds of debit cards were delivered, which will ease the recipients into the system. Notably, many in the line were happy for the assistance. Here's News 5's Dwayne Moody with this report.
Before 8 o'clock this morning, a large number of persons formed queues in front of the Social Security Board office on Princess Margaret Drive, Belize City. They gathered to pick up a Heritage Bank card, which they will now use to access the $150 assistance via the COVID-19 Unemployment Relief Fund. They form part of the almost 33,000 applications which have been approved for payment. But these persons didn't have an account, and so they were facilitated with these cards that work as debit cards for them to access ATMs to withdraw the money or use to purchase food items at stores.
I get my text pertaining my prepaid card, so I can go see what happened because I get my text.
Talk to us about when you applied and how it came to this point.
Okay, I applied the first week of the state of emergency. I applied for it, and when I apply for it online, I get through, then I get my text afterwards, like 2-3 weeks after, said that the first text I get said that they will review it, then I get the next text stating that my application has been approved, then I get my next text stating that I should come to pick up my card.
One fisherman from Corozal says that he's trying to find a way to support his family. Silvano Cub has his common-law wife, 2 kids and another on the way, but because he cannot go to fish, the family has lost its income. While the $150 isn't much, he says it is something that will be stretched to sustain his family.
Well, it's sad, because I just stay right here in Belize City. I never have no enough time for going my village. So I just living here in Belize City for like 2 years now. So I'm working in the sea, I'm like a fisherman, so it's kind of hard for us. It's not pretty much a big help, you know, but it's kind of pretty much good because right now we don't have the financials for go out at sea. So I'm a fisherman, like I was telling you, and this is not a big money. But it's kind of help, I really appreciate that too.
Stephen Buckley also received his texts and despite his ailment lined up today to collect his card. He has been unable to work since a shooting incident a decade ago. He hustles here and there but says that he cannot due to COVID-19. Buckley says this money will help to provide for his family.
I get a text then thing you forgive me. So I come get it and wait for see where they got forgive me, no? I can't go on the street because as the man is on the street, they say, Buckley, we are send you up. I tell the big man, where I want to do, I have to hustle for eat, make my kids eat. I go do my little run for my neighbors there and do my little run, I get my little money and thing, you know? And you really know it happen. Due to why this thing is up and locked down, you know? Since I can't work again, the people in look out for me and give me a little help. And I appreciate the little help when they push out for me because I need it, because then I got my kids and I have to take care of it.
While most of the persons have been approved, there were several who stood in line simply to find out why they had not been approved for the assistance, even though they have been impacted by COVID-19. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
After the break, the long road to economic recovery. The leader of the opposition says the reopening of the economy should be gradual. The losses triggered by COVID-19 to the business sector are enormous, and the road to economic recovery will be long and an arduous journey. Many businesses will have to rebound even as thousands of Belizeans are unemployed. The more stringent lockdown will be lifted on Saturday, which coincides with when a peak is forecasted. Opposition leader John Brisenia says that reopening the economy in the weeks ahead can be done systematically with the right precautions being taken to ensure that there are no outbreaks of COVID-19 in the country. He recommends that the airport should be reopened down the road in early June.
By Saturday, the 2 weeks hard lockdown is coming to an end. And so that next week we can start to open up the economy step by step, slowly, to make sure that we don't make any mistakes. This week is going to be a critical week that we have to look at very closely to see if there will be more people that come up with the virus. We believe that is the peak, according to Dr. Manzanero, is going to be between the 24th and the 26th of April, which is this week. And if we don't see any serious surge of people with the virus, then we can look at opening up the economy. Things as they are right now, I believe that we can start to do opening the airport by June. No, certainly it's not going to be like before. We still have to put in certain precautions at the airport only at this time. But as a government, we need to give a signal that we are prepared to open, so that then that would allow American Airlines, Delta, Copa, United, all of these Southwest that fly to Belize could start to program their flights that they're going to start to fly to Belize, and hopefully we can start to get some tourists to come to Belize. It's not going to be an overnight work. It's going to take some time. But again, we need to be bold but cautious, because we have to ensure that the health of our people come first.
In an effort to assist as many Belizeans who were in dire straits as a result of the sudden economic downturn, government has been bolstering initiatives such as the Pantry and Boost programs. The assistance, however, is being dispensed through partisan vehicles, which prevent others, particularly supporters of the opposition, from qualifying for relief. Earlier today, PUP leader John Brisenia decried the practice of granting aid through political programs.
There's a lot of need right now. I mean, thousands of people have lost their jobs. And before that, there were thousands more that did not have a job. And now they can do any kind of, trying to do some kind of hustle, like washing cars or going to mow the lawns, etc., etc. And there's a desperate need, and people need food. And we need to try to get it to them as quickly as possible. I need to start off with that. But as you know, the Pantry program is a UDP program, because this has been handled by the UDP party. They have been using government resources to play politics with it. And whilst these people that are on the Pantry program, they need, and I do not have a problem with the people on the Pantry program, I do have a problem how it has been administered over the years. Like I can tell you, I have not been able to get not a single person in Orange Walk Central registered to the Pantry program. You could ask Cordell or Francis or Kareem, Said, any one of them in Belize City or down south. If they have gotten anybody on the Pantry program, they have not, because that's a UDP Pantry program that the UDP politicians use, Belizean taxpayers, to be able to try to control their, these votes. So, and now we're told now that the $12 that they have to pay, even that is being taken off. Good for the people that are benefiting from it. But again, the issue is that this is a UDP program.
The Port of Belize may be getting a $200 million expansion in the coming years. According to Chamberlain Consulting, Waterloo Investments Holdings, a part of the Lord Michael Ashcroft portfolio, is the project lead. According to Chamberlain Consulting, back in 2016, government had asked Waterloo Investments Holding to research the viability of a cruise facility at the Port of Belize. Chamberlain Consulting says that an initial feasibility study done with the help of Royal Caribbean Cruise Line shows that there is tremendous economic opportunity in such an expansion. Now, the proposed expansion is being hailed as a gateway to commerce and culture because the project has two components: a berthing facility for cruise ships along the dock and the bulk handling storage for agricultural exportation. Today, Chamberlain Consulting, as the agent for the stakeholder engagement in this project, held an online session with reporters to share more about the project that is being proposed. Chamberlain says that 3 drafts of their environmental and social impact assessments have been submitted. Today, she gave the press an overview of what the project's planned expansion aims to do for tourism and agriculture.
We had to capture the cruise potential, and we realized that more hours onshore and direct access to Belize's interior would allow for longer excursions, and it would also take off the pressure that is currently on certain locations when there's only a short space of time. Certain sites in Belize are being used over and over again because our guests cannot travel further into the country to give revenue to other communities and at the same time explore other parts of the country. Again, direct access to the Western Highway removes congestion in Belize City, and the docking facility allows Belize's share cruise destination market to grow because we're going to be able to have A-class larger ships, which is a very important thing to realize. In Barbados, for instance, they have seen less cruise ships coming to the country, however, fewer but larger ships, which means more revenue to the country when they do arrive. You don't know that on a typical 4-ship cruise day, 20,570 disembarking guests and crews will be welcomed to the Belize mainland via the port. That takes us from 60% currently with tender operations to 90% with 6,000 to 10,000 more guests arriving to the mainland, being able to utilize the facilities, goes on tours, which means that the tour industry and the operators industry and the braiders and everyone will see growth for themselves. We see 500,000 to 750,000 more spending per day at the current averages. However, if we look at spending increases to the Caribbean averages, it takes it from 670,000 to 975,000. We might also be able to see overnight docking, which increases revenue further with nighttime offerings. This cruise facility at its peak will be able to take on 2.5 million passengers per year at full capacity. And this is what we're looking at. And if you look at the diagrams on my screen, you will see that 2022 where our numbers are and taking it up all the way to 2050. So the bulk facility allows us to improve the competitiveness of Belizean agriculture, and this significantly reduces the time spent at the port in loading and unloading. The deepening of the navigation channel allows the port to accommodate larger ships and reduces the on and off loading time. The planned bulk facility is expected to bring in over 500,000 tons of additional commodity traffic to Belize City. And this is sizable and a direct impact. Now, this photo that I have here right now shows the schematic of what the port may look like, but it's not the final master plan. And it will include pair arrivals, arrival plaza, cruise center village, the logistics areas, charters and boat basins, and of course a cultural marketplace. The photo inset there is from the Barbadian cruise location, and I want you to realize that although a lot of people say that a bulk handling storage and a cruise terminal work, in Barbados it is currently doing very well for them.
Chamberlain Consulting says that they've done consultations with over 70 partners and expect to be engaging the wider Port Loyola community as they move forward in the process. But with such a big project in a waterway, it is expected that there will be some impact on the environment. Chamberlain Consulting told the press today that they have received feedback from some of those consultations, and concerns include dredging and waste disposal. Other concerns include the level of inclusion and direct opportunities for the Port Loyola community. Dr. Dion Chamberlain outlined some of the issues that have been raised about this proposed planned expansion.
But I want you to know that these are not assumptions that we're not going to be affecting the environment heavily, because the bathymetric surveys, the geophysical and geotechnical surveys, the hydrometeorological analysis The environmental baseline studies and the plume studies will show that yes, there will be impact to the environment, but it will not be significant, and that it will be offset by the economic and social impacts that are required at this point in Belize's development. We need jobs. We need to grow the economy. We need to ensure that people are eating. And that's an important thing that we have to do, is to learn how to balance very carefully to not affect future generations with the environment, but at the same time provide the economical growth that people need today. And I must tell you, there has been concerns, and there are concern and mitigation that is in place. I want you to understand that the dredging and disposal has been brought up, that it could have environmental impacts. However, the team in place is ensuring that they are doing everything on a scientific perspective to deliver this project in a environmentally sustainable manner. And there is quite a bit of monitoring that will be involved to ensure that we protect the environment. The current cruise operators are becoming obsolete, is another concern. And the reality is that this new berth, yes, will take away some of that business. However, it will be allowing for ships which never had an opportunity to come to Belize before to come, the A-class ships that we're mentioning before. And this is one of the moves that Barbados had to take so that they could stay on track and in line with the growth and development of the industry. People are concerned of the look and the arrival of the aesthetics of being a cruise terminal and a cargo port. Again, look at Barbados, look at other countries. This is successfully being done, and it will be done beautifully. Displacement of people like our stevedores, I want you to understand that these stevedores will always continue to work at whatever port exists. However, there may be need to grow them, to train them up, to upscale them, and get them prepared for more mechanical use of work. So again, there is growth for everyone. We need to start looking at diversification of the way we do our jobs, but not necessarily losing of any job. Minimal employment for locals, I want you to know that we've seen that it's going to be around 100 to 150 workers pre-construction, 400 to 500 in construction phase, and numerous after the construction phase. And of course, in the entrepreneurial environment, we don't know that the sky is really the limit of how far we want to take this.
When we come back, if you are caught burning, expected to be fined. New fire laws come into effect today. Bishop Doric Wright will be laid to rest on Wednesday here in Belize City following a televised funeral service that will be broadcast live from Holy Redeemer Cathedral. Channel 5 will be carrying the live feed beginning at 10 in the morning. Earlier today, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Belize City and Bamopan announced that prior to the service, there will be a mobile procession that departs from the KHMH morgue at 8 o'clock. The motorcade will make its way to various churches in Belize City, beginning with Divine Mercy Church on the Philip Golson Highway, then to St. Joseph Church, St. Martin de Porres Church, St. Ignatius Church, St. John's Vianney Church, before culminating at the Holy Redeemer Cathedral.
I would say one of the most challenging moments in his life was when he had to deal with the gender issue, and he had to confront that and give his opinions about that, trying to keep in line with what the church would believe and so forth. And some people see him as conservative, some say as progressive and so forth. Well, whatever, that was a challenge for him, but he did what he felt he had to do at that particular time in the life of the country. Now, his illness, I would say his illness affected him tremendously. I think he was a bit frustrated at times. And just as how everybody asked the question, why? Why did this have to happen to me? And several times he posed that particular question. But, I guess he just accepted that was one of the things that happened in life, and he tried to deal with it as much as he possibly could. But it did hinder his work tremendously. And I think for him, it was a frustration that he couldn't accomplish much, and that's where the question why would come in. Why did this have to happen to me at this particular time? But anyway, he weathered the storm, and in spite of having an amputation and so forth.
You can no longer light fires during the state of emergency. If you're found doing so, you can be fined up to $5,000, and if you can't pay that fee, then you can spend up to 2 years behind bars. That is because today the Ministry of Fisheries, Forestry, the Environment and Sustainable Development announced the new law that came into effect, which makes burning of fires during the state of emergency illegal. As we have been reporting since last week, the growing number of fires across the country is posing serious health and safety risks. On Monday of this week, 186 fires were recorded across the country. Today, we spoke with CEO Dr. Percival Cho, and he tells us more about this law to control air pollution.
This new law requires all persons to stop burning, to not burn any refuse, any yard waste, any garbage, any vegetation, any bush, grass, any milpa, any sort of fields whatsoever in Belize for the duration of the state of emergency, so up to the end of April. We are working up additional measures to come into place for the duration of the year and every other year for that matter, because burning is an annual thing, no? But those would be dealt with at a later time. But right now, this piece of legislation is focused on the next 9 days or so, actually, up to April 30th. So what it means is that if someone is caught burning by the police or by the Department of the Environment, they would be immediately fined the $5,000 and well taken before a magistrate when available. Failing to pay the fine, if you're found guilty, it would be a 2-year imprisonment term for anyone found guilty of setting fire. So it's really a measure to control the air pollution that we're suffering right now in across Belize, in Bamopan, especially San Ignacio even more, and to give people some relief from the amount of smoke and ash and dust that originate from these fires. Now, one thing that I should mention is that some of these fires have escaped into surrounding vegetation, and we're noticing that from the reports coming in from the field. And so those fires, it would have to be addressed through some direct intervention to out. There's quite a lot of refuse burning in people's yards, in the cities and in towns. People are burning small little bits of garbage, sometimes in plastic bags. Sometimes these are dried leaves falling from the trees and so forth. That also is included as a prohibited activity, and so we would warn the public, please cease from burning anything in their yard, at least, like I said, for the duration of the state of emergency, and to cooperate with us in that regard, because people are suffering. We're getting complaints on a daily basis from across Belize.
And to help them monitor the situation, the Forest Department has been using an online tool that records heat points across the country. While that tool will help to guide the steps of the department, they're also looking into getting some boots on the ground to curb this growing problem. CEO Percival Cho explains.
So we have virtual monitoring online using the NASA FIRM system. That detects fires across Belize of a certain size. And we use that initially to detect where these hotspots are. And with the Forestry Department and the Department of the Environment, they're having a coordination session at 4 o'clock in about half an hour to plan out the rest of the week's inspections across Belize. So in the west, they'll target the San Antonio, Moyahon area, as well as the surroundings of San Ignacio and Santa Elena. In the Belmopan area, they'll check the surroundings of Belmopan, the villages, Cotton Tree, Mayawapan, Salvapan, going down to Las Flores. And in the south, it's a little bit far removed, but we do notice a lot of fires down there. So the Department of the Environment will collaborate with the Village Council, the Association of Village Councils, as well as with the Maya Leaders Alliance, to communicate to them the recent legislation signed into law yesterday, or it comes into effect today, to communicate that clearly to them so that they at least reach out to their members and the various communities in the south to make them aware of this new legislation. In terms of monitoring on the ground, we have 3 teams from the DOE, 2 teams from the Forestry Department. Like I said, they're coordinating, have a session in about half an hour to coordinate their movements in these hotspots. In other areas where there's fire, yes, there's 1 or 2 fires in other areas other than what I just mentioned, and those will be addressed with on a case-by-case basis in terms of when we see them being detected by the NASA system, and when we look at the location and the risk that poses, and we'll make a decision on how to address those. In addition, though, on-ground enforcement is authorized, police officers are authorized to do on-ground enforcement under this law. So it's not just the DOE officers. The entire police department, any police can make an arrest under this new law. And so that expands the capabilities and the reach on the ground.
There is a report tonight that a police officer has been arrested and charged for violating the curfew regulation. The cop, Patrick Roches, was detained on Monday night. From the reports received, Roches also was granted bail. Apparently, Roches and another officer were drinking when they were apprehended. Coming up after the break, the National Geographic features our manatee man, Jamal Galvez. Local manatee conservationist Jamal Galvez got another major shout-out from National Geographic. He's being featured by the publication for their Earth Day celebrations, which is being observed on Wednesday. The feature includes a short video and a write-up about Galvez's work and the manatees. The piece helps to raise awareness as well as funds to support Antillean manatees. Here's a short video that's posted on the National Geographic's website.
I was an explorer at the age of 11. I saw on my grandma's lawn, I see a weird-looking boat go by. I heard that they're doing research about an animal that I care about. And these are very important to my life. It's not a job to me. I felt it was my duty to speak up for these animals that can't speak for themselves. Just because they can't speak doesn't mean that they don't have something to say. Change has to come and someone has to do it. Why can't I be that someone? My name is Jamal Galvez and my mission is to safeguard the Antillean manatees of Belize.
Galvez is one of National Geographic's Photo Arc Edge Fellow. The government of Belize, as the chair of the Alliance of Small Island States, hosted the Placencia Ambition Forum, which put together key actors in the climate change discussions around the central idea of increasing ambition and a focus on safeguarding the Paris Agreement. The forum was planned to take place in Placencia, but due to COVID-19, it was held virtually. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic amplifies the importance of key island priorities for the global climate change agenda. The forum serves as an opportunity to highlight the synergies between the disruption of COVID-19 and climate change and how responses to COVID-19 can strengthen the case for more sustainable climate action. Prime Minister Barrow spoke at the opening of the forum. And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, please remember to wash your hands, keep your social distance, stay home, and stay safe. Good night.